Hello, everyone. This is Kellen Lynch at Housing Solutions Network. We are doing another episode of the Permit Navigator series. And today we're sitting with Fred Kimball and Richard Berg of Terrapin Architecture. And before we get going, I just want to make sure you all know you can find all of our videos for the Permit Navigator series and all the housing resources we offer at housingsolutionsnetwork.org. And you just look up the Permit Navigator page under the Build tab. And we have a bunch of different videos on there, from just how to find the permit on the city or county's website to how to actually fill out that permit. And today we're going to talk with Richard and go deeper into the nuances of how to actually look at plans for an ADU and what to think about when designing your own. All right. Richard Berg, why don't you take us away?
Hi, this is Richard Berg of Terrapin Architecture, as Kellen said, and I thought that we could take a look at a simple set of house plans today. This is actually a plan of a small one-bedroom house that's been built by Habitat for Humanity, and it's a good example of a plan set that might be applicable to somebody who wants to do a simple ADU, perhaps in their backyard, because it just kind of has the essential information that's needed for a permit application and not really much more than that. So this is a site plan. Usually this is our first page called A 1.0. And this plan shows the property lines of the lot, shown in a dark line there. And it shows, actually, this is a roof plan of the house. So the edge of the roof is that solid line. And then the walls, the exterior walls of the house are this dotted line. And you can see that the roof overhang is about 2 feet outside of the exterior walls. This part right here is the front porch. Then there's a bunch of information on this page about the lot and the project. So there's a little project description here: 2-bedroom, single-family residence. The site address, the owner, information about the owner, address and phone number, the zoning of the property, which you can find by looking on your, I don't know, how do you find that, Fred?
You find it on the city lab. Has a map of the different zones.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can go to the city zoning map. Legal description of the property, which
Get that off your tax records.
tax
Property
records,
tax records.
yeah, and also your parcel number, which is on your tax records. We usually say which codes we're complying with. At this time this one was done, it was the 2015 IRC, which is an international residential code, and the 2015 Washington State Energy Code. As of this year, we're now using the 2018 versions of both of those codes. And then right here is a bunch of information about the energy code compliance, which you can find in the code.
Is there an actual worksheet also for that, Richard?
Yeah, there's a worksheet, and actually all of this information is on the worksheet as well. But we always do prescriptive compliance with the energy code because that's by far the easiest way to comply. And so there's just a list of things that have to meet certain standards. The U value of the windows has to be 0.30 maximum, so it'd be 0.3 or less. The doors, the same thing. The attic insulation has to be a minimum of R49, etc. That's all on the energy code worksheet. And then in addition to that, in addition to all of those minimums, each building has to get a certain number of credits. And that information is also on the energy code worksheet, but you kind of have to decide out of all of the options in the table of potential credits, which credits you're going to get. And in this case, since it's a small house, we only needed to get 1.5 credits. And in this case, the decision was to get 0.5 credits by putting flow restrictors on our faucets and shower heads, And then also we're going to use a mini split heat pump, which gets us 1 credit. So
these are requirements.
These are requirements, yeah. And this whole energy code thing is a little complicated to understand and apply. It might be something that you might want to see if you can get some help with from somebody who's familiar with it. But there it is.
We'll probably do a whole nother video just on energy code.
Just on the energy code, yeah.
The U values and stuff you can get from your window and door supplier.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, usually we just put on the plans that the windows have to be a maximum of U.30. And then, you know, when the windows are ordered from the lumberyard, they know that because they've got a copy of the plans that you've given them. A couple of requirements under the zoning code. We need to say what is the lot coverage. In other words, how much of the lot is being covered by the footprint of the house. In this case, the lot area is 3,000 square feet. The house footprint is about 1,000 square feet, so the lot coverage is 34.4. And in the R3 zone, the allowable coverage is 45%. So you have to make sure that you're not covering more than what's allowed. Just saying, most of Port Townsend is not R3, it's R2 or R1, and the allowable lot coverage, the lots are bigger and the allowable lot coverage percentage is smaller. So most typically in Port Townsend, the most typical zoning is R2 and the allowable coverage is 35%.
Unless you have an ADU.
If you, what?
Unless you have an ADU, right? I just
Yeah, if you have an ADU, then you're allowed to cover 40%. So there's a little bit of an incentive to go ahead and put an ADU on your property. The other thing is impervious area. So that's a little bit different than lot coverage. It includes all of the area that's covered, that's where rain cannot soak into the ground, essentially. So it includes the size of the roof as opposed to the house footprint. And it also includes any impervious surfaces like walkways and driveways. And the thing here is there's no limit on the amount of impervious surface, but if you're over 40%, then you need to have an engineered stormwater plan. So something to be aware of, because if it does put you over 40%, then you'll need to talk to an engineer about doing a little stormwater plan for you. In my experience, that's for a residential lot, that's something that costs about $1,000 to have an engineer do for you. And then the last thing here is just the floor area of the building, heated and unheated. So on this one, we've got 896 square feet of heated area, and then a little unheated shed, which is this right here, and 117 square feet of covered porch unheated, which is up here. I'm going to go on now to
maybe if you could point out some of the setback distances.
Oh, that's a good point too. In the zoning code, one of the requirements, there's a couple of different requirements. There's a maximum height, which in this case, since it's a one-story building, isn't really an issue, but if you're doing a 2- or 3-story building, could be. Maximum height typically in Port Townsend is 30 feet, and there's a certain way that you measure that. And then there's also setbacks from your property lines. And in this case, you can see those right here, 5 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet. And again, this was R3 property. Most of Port Townsend is R2. So most of these setbacks are 10 feet. So it's 10 feet in the front. In R2, it's 10 feet in the front, 10 feet in the back, 10 feet on one side, and 5 feet on the other side. And I think it's the same in R1, if I'm not mistaken. Anything else on the site plan that we should point out, Fred?
Other than, your building or buildings need to sit within that setback.
Right. Things like walkways and driveways can be between the setback line and the property line, but any part of your building has to be inside the setback lines. Also, they want to know where the water lines and sewer lines are. So here, this is a water line out in the street. And in this case, well, there's a sewer line right there that's not connected to the house. I don't know why. That's something about this plan that's incomplete, but there's the water line, and there's where the water line, that's the water meter, and then it goes into the house. So it needs to be shown where those utilities are located.
How would someone find where the water line is?
There's actually a map on the city website that is called a utility map that has all of the water lines and sewer lines in the city. So you can pull up your piece of property on that map and you can see where the water lines and sewer lines are. Typically, if you're doing an ADU on a property where there's already a house, you just connect into the existing water and sewer lines that already serve the house. So you don't have to be too concerned about where they are out in the street.
Okay.
So moving on, this is a first floor plan. And so you want to show your exterior walls and interior walls. You want to show where the doors and windows are located. And in this case, we're also showing, there's a couple of things about the structure of the house that need to be shown on the plans. So one of them is how gravity loads are held up. In other words, the weight of the roof and the snow on the roof and so forth. And the other one is how lateral loads are resisted. And lateral loads are loads that push on the house sideways. So those are loads from wind and earthquakes. And there's a method in the code, a prescriptive method in the code for lateral load design. And that's what is shown in these places right here. Again, that's something that could be like a whole nother video. So I'm not necessarily going to go into how that's done, but just to point out that it needs to be on the plans.
Okay.
And again, if it's kind of a thing that's complicated, you're trying to do this yourself and it's more complicated than you know how to deal with, it might be something that you could get help with from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Couple other things to point out. We want to show where each of the plumbing fixtures are. So there's the plumbing fixtures in the bathroom. There's the kitchen sink. You need to put on the plans required fans. So here's a fan that's in the bathroom, and a fan, exhaust fan over the range, and also smoke detectors. And the rule for smoke detectors is that there has to be one in each bedroom and one right outside of each bedroom. So here's the one in the bedroom, here's the one outside the bedroom. And the one outside the bedroom needs to be a combination smoke and carbon monoxide detector. Also, there's the water heater. It's important to show that. And in this case, it's out in the storage shed. Moving on, this is the foundation plan. So in this case, this foundation just has a perimeter stem wall, and this is a concrete slab. We usually draw the plumbing fixtures on the foundation plan because it's helpful to whoever's working with the concrete to know where there needs to be a drain or water connection of some kind. This is a little slab that's under the storage shed, and this is also a slab that's under the front porch. And then right there and right there are where the two porch posts come down, and there is a bracket set into the concrete to hold the base of those.
And the slab insulation is shown on the wall sections?
Yeah, so we'll get there. This is the roof framing plan. So this just showed, this particular house is made with trusses, which is a pretty common way to build. Conventionally light framed house. So this just says engineered trusses at 24 inches on center. That pretty much means that when it comes time to build this, the builder would just order the trusses from the lumber yard, and the lumber yard would order them from a truss company, and the truss company would provide the engineering design for the trusses. So it's the specific engineering of these trusses doesn't need to be addressed in these plans.
I mean, that engineering information from the truss manufacturer will want to be included with your package on the job site.
Right.
The inspector-
The other thing in here is that each one of these window locations is shown, and over each window is a structural header that holds up the weight of whatever's over the window, and those headers have been, you know, determined what they need to be, and they're called out here.
Is there a prescriptive way to size those headers, or is that something they may need help with?
You know, in our office, we have software to do that. So we always do it that way. But I'm pretty sure in the IRC, there's a table that, you know, you can just look up what the span is of the header and how much weight it's supporting. And it gives you a prescriptive header size to use. Each set of plans has to have what they call a wall section detail. So that's what this is. Basically, this is the drawing that shows how the building is going to be constructed. And so this shows, you know, here's our roof trusses. There's the attic insulation. This is the 2x6 stud wall with insulation shown. And then lastly, elevation drawings of the exterior of the house. So this is the front with the front door. And that's one side. Here's the other side, and there's the back. And this is the little unheated shed. So, you know, basically just simply calling out the materials, like this is 8.25 inch hardy plank siding, calls out the 5/4 cedar trim boards and 5/4 cedar door and window trim. The window sizes are called out here. Again, they were also on the floor plan, and a comp shingle roof. So basically it just shows what it looks like from the outside and what the basic materials are.
And then these are submitted with your building permit, and you can probably expect some red lines from the building plan reviewer as to either questions or comments as what may be omitted, or
yeah, and any piece of information that you happen to leave out because you didn't think of it, or any information that they found not quite complete enough to feel comfortable issuing the permit. You know, they'll generally come back with a little list of questions that you have to address.
So these are obviously produced with professional software, like you mentioned earlier. You know, that's how you do some of the calculations. How rough can these drawings be if they have all the information on them?
No, if the drawings are drawn by hand, that's fine if they have all the information. You know, like I said, there's a lot of prescriptive information in the IRC, but you know, the IRC is a gigantic book, and it takes some familiarity with, you know, kind of knowing how to use it and knowing how to find that information.
Mm-hmm.
it's not written for lay people necessarily.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, if people feel comfortable drawing a set of plans themselves, but they're not sure how to really deal with all of the structural engineering issues, there are engineers around that, you know, provide a service of just doing that part of it. So they don't draw your plans for you or anything, but they'll figure out the sizes of your beams, and they'll do that wind and earthquake engineering piece for you. So that's, you know, if you're interested in saving all the money you can by drawing your own plans, but you need somebody to do that piece, that service is available.
Great. Yeah, this is really good to see just how both comprehensive it is, and you know, you lay it out, and the plans are laid out pretty cohesively and sensibly, but there's so many details built into that that, you know, I can expect that with most plans, you're going to see a little red ink when it comes back to you. And hopefully that red ink doesn't stop people in their tracks, but just makes
Yeah,
it better.
well, and it will, you know, most likely come back to you if you're inexperienced at drawing plans. And don't worry, you know, we've been drawing house plans for 30 years at this firm, and we get those red comment sheets back also. So
Right. It's going to happen.
part of the process.
Right.
Kind of a word of warning is that you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself ordering materials until you see what kind of comments come back on the set of plans. Just there may be little changes, but there may be big changes as far as getting different materials coming, header sizes, beam sizes, and that sort of material.
Well, thank you so much, Richard, and thank you, Fred, for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this. And as always, our funding for this project does come from the Rotary Club in Port Townsend. So thank you to the Rotary Club for caring about workforce housing and for caring about this project. Thank you.